Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Two World Podcast. It's been a moment or three since we last gathered together to record a podcast, and it's great to be back. In the interim, we welcomed Barney and his family to our country, and it was great to see him and visit with him and his family, and they have safely returned to Japan. So we're back in the seats, back in the saddle, and ready to go. But before diving into today's topic, I'd like to introduce the two co-hosts, the two original co-hosts for the Two World Podcast. First, we have,
Hello, everyone. I am Jacob.
and our other co-host who will lead us into today's topic, we have.
I am Barney, and it is great to be together again virtually, but I'm reaching out to all of you through the podcasts and YouTubes. I have to say that in the interim, I've missed our podcast or episodes. So I've been listening to old episodes, and they really hold up. They're really a lot of fun. I wonder if you guys out there also do the same. Jacob and Ken, what about you guys? Do you go back sometimes to listen to past episodes?
Yep.
Definitely. It's really fun sometimes if you haven't seen an episode in a while to kind of rediscover what we talked about and the thread or the direction the conversation turns and twists. I agree. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I love having the audio option on Spotify because I think, as I mentioned to one or both of you, I was on the mower one day not too long ago and listened to the episode about video game music. And yeah, Barney, you're right. It holds up well, and it was thoroughly entertaining and informative.
Mhm, mhm.
A bit of bias, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah. I happen to think that we really sound pretty good, but I think though that today's episode is a great topic, and I think it's a topic that will hold up well as well. And I think that maybe you, the listeners, and the three of us will be able to have a really fun conversation together and learn about what it is and why it is that board games and card games, if you'll permit us, are so much fun. I don't know how this topic came to mind, once, while I was probably washing the dishes, as I always say, but I realized, there are such a wide variety of board games and card games, and there are so many fun things, unexpected things that tend to happen when you're playing board games that really make a lot of great memories. And one other great thing about board games is, they have suggested ages on them, but I feel that really people of all age can, young and old, can connect with and continue to play and continue to enjoy board games. And there's actually a lot of board games out there that are available for, I guess, like you could say, single player. There was one board game that I never personally bought, but was always interested in called Scythe. And I think it is kind of like developing a civilization, maybe something like that. I know it has to deal with, making sure you have enough resources and whatnot. And it really sounded right up my alley, but I could never quite get past the price tag. But the funny thing is, like, when I was doing Reddit gifts, the gift exchange, Secret Santa, and one person said they like board games. I didn't hesitate a minute to put that in the basket and send that to them right away. So, but for myself, I was like, ooh, I don't know, that's a little bit too much for a board game. But the, there's something about playing board games, sharing board games that make them so much fun. And so I feel like all three of us, I've gotten some recommendations from Jacob, but I feel like all three of us have favorite board games, favorite board game memories. And we invite you to join us as we delve into what it is that makes board games so much fun.
Mhm.
So I proposed this idea a while ago, and then just when I got home, I said, while we were in America, my youngest son was just digging through hutch, and he unearthed our really old version of Milliborns, the card games. This is a card game, but we'll include it. And it's I had these great memories of playing it, growing up, and then I kind of wondered, did I really understand the rules really well? Are those like puncture proof and driving ace? Are those cards really that strong? And so I got it out and we went through the rules. I was like, whoa, those cards really are that strong. And then we got my dad involved and we played a bunch. And then later I was having lunch with my high school and junior high English teachers, husband and wife pair. And I mentioned that we played that. And of course, the wife, who's very witty, she said, "Oh, yes, that game is so much fun because you get to murder the French language when you play." Because the cards, those cards are primarily in French, but with a little bit English. And then so we wanted to get the game to take home. And I got the modern, I don't know, modern version, I guess. It comes in a tin. And I don't know why, but it's in English now. So they got rid of the really quaint and fun aspect of the cards being in French, and everything is just in English. So if we can see it, so it's spare tire, and what go the roulette, now it just says drive. So it loses a little bit of the charm. You don't get to murder the French language anymore, sadly, but the game is still lots and lots of fun, and I didn't realize it was supposed to be played in pairs, 4 people and 2 on a team, and then we tried it that way, and we really had a great time, and we played to 5,000, playing to 1,000 miles. You have to get exactly to 1,000 each in order to win, and we played to the first team that got to 5,000, and it often went to the very last game, the best of 9, and really super fun. That was what after that experience, I thought we really got to revisit this board game topic, because I think not only me, but I think you, Ken, and also you, Jacob, probably have a lot of good things, recommendations, and fun stories and like that to share too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, being the sequential, mathy, anal person that I am, I'm curious to ask you guys, and Barney, you kinda gave us a clue of what you did and what you experienced with games and cards as a youth. What about as you guys were growing up with family, with friends in the neighborhood? What kinda games did you participate in?
I remember there was one game that I'll talk about too. One game that comes to mind, I think it was called Stratego, I think. And I think that, like, it's a little bit like chess, and I think that, like, the pieces have 2 sides, and they have, like, different, it might be like horses or cannons or things like that, and somehow I think you, like, kind of meet each other on the battlefield, and then, like, whichever piece is higher or something like that ends up winning. And then the other one is called Survive, and I think I was at home and we were in the basement, like, maybe this last winter, and we just found this whale tail piece, this plastic whale tail. And deep in the recess of my mind, I'm thinking, why do I know this? Why is this from? Why is this bothering me? I know what this is from. And then thanks to, being able to take a picture and search it, it came up and it was Survive. I was like, oh, yes, that game where, like, it's all hexagon shapes and you make the board, and, like, you have to get the pieces into into your boats and off of the island before the volcano blows up. And then, there's sea monsters and whatnot, whales that can wreck your ship. And I thought, oh, my brothers and I had so much fun playing that game. And how I wish I could find the rest of it, but who knows where it is. So those were the kind of usually games for us were often ones that were played in a group, usually my brothers. Although, of course, if we're including card games, then, since I'm a Mennonite from the Midwest, then euchre was the one that ruled it all for us, all the time.
That's so fun. I love that. Well, on my end, I would say a game that was really popular when I was growing up in our house was Jenga. Now, this is not the original set we had. This is a set we got later, but it's a stacking game, and the intensity increases as you're building the tower higher and higher, and then you don't wanna be the last person who causes the tower to topple. And my uncle brought this game to our house. He was always one to introduce new fun things for us to do together when he would visit, and it just really caught on, so our family would play this quite a bit. And it's so accessible. You can get the concept very quickly, and it's kind of
Mm.
for all ages. So, yeah, Jenga was a really big deal. And then I remember in 6th grade, I went to a new school, and it seemed like everybody there who was into board games during our breaks wanted to play Risk. And
Yeah.
it's a strategy game, and it takes a long time, so you can only play so much each break, but they would leave the board set up, and those who are really interested in go back to it, and it's kind of I don't know, would you say a conquer, like, taking over swaths of territory, like you're building an empire, and
Mhm.
I never was very good at it, but since everybody was interested in it at the time, I went along with it, and it was kind of fascinating to do more of a strategy-based game instead of more physics-based block building, but yeah, those are 2 that jump out, and then I know that chess and checkers are maybe they might seem like a different tier, but actually were quite popular in our house. I would play chess with my dad. We had a little chessboard that would hang on the wall that was in the shape of a cow, and we'd take it down, and it had the little blue and white pieces, and we would play with that and checkers, and so, anyway, some classics that way, but but definitely yeah, the Risk was a big deal in 6th grade, so, yeah. How about for you, Ken? What do you think back on when you think of board games early on?
Well, when Barney mentioned games you can play alone, probably the one I played from age 10 to 15-ish more than any other easily because I could play alone and it had math, was Yahtzee. I still have my
Mm.
original game, which I didn't dredge up to put in the display today, but there's a slide of it coming up a little bit later. And I still have a lot of the score sheets. I don't know why do I keep these things, but I know at the time I kept them so I could compare, the best score I ever got to, versus a absolute tragic round of it and so on, yeah. Jacob, you mentioned checkers and chess. My dad got me a chess set and, taught me how to what the different pieces did, and we played a lot of that. Going way back, and I know the background here is hard, but where my finger behind my finger right there is a game called Uncle
Uncle
Wiggily.
Wiggly.
It was one of the first games probably as a small child along with, like, Candyland and those. Old Maid, as far as cards go, Crazy Eights, my mother loved that, but I loved Uncle Wiggily because not only did it help you to learn counting skills, the cards involved were clever and a little bit funny, and I found this at a thrift store not that long ago because we have a grandchild that's 4 years old, and she's just about ready to encounter games like this, and that was definitely one of my favorites from, probably b age 7 and below. It provided a lot of entertainment. I have it's hard to see it again, but Jacob has one that's more visible. Scrabble was a favorite. I think I still have the game that my parents had, and there are some score sheets in there when my mom was pregnant with me that
That's
yeah,
amazing.
which I think sort of subliminally inspired me a lot of times, and I still do it. When I'm playing games with score sheets with people, I will date them, and
Oh.
it's fun to look back at who was playing and when it all happened, things like that. Now, really, really off the wall, when I would go to my one uncle and aunts, they were I the word coming to mind is earthy, and that's probably a little bit of a wrong nomenclature, but they were earthy folks, and they taught me how to play poker. We would play penny ante poker there, and I really felt like, I was a grown up at that point and learned the basics of poker, and it stayed with me. When I went to college, I remember, they were getting up a in the fraternity house, they were getting up a game of poker that evening in the main room, and I thought, I could probably handle this,
Mm.
and I stood back and watched a couple of hands, and I realized that this was not for me. I always remember, guys, the next morning I woke up getting ready to go to class. I walked by the living room, and they're still playing. I remember saying, "What are you guys doing?" And one guy said, "I'm down $75. I can't I
I can't
can't
quit now.
quit now." Okay. And I'm thinking, "Boy, this was way beyond my reach." Glad I didn't. So that was a few. You could see the trouble game, I think, pretty clearly in the background behind me. That's a kid's classic, and I think that might have been my wife's copy from when she was a kid.
Wow. That's great, and I love how you talk about games not just as like a one-off experience or a throwaway experience, but something to be remembered, and how you date the score sheets. Because I feel like, sometimes we can think about entertainment as kind of wasted time, but really some of the precious moments of life are spent in those relaxing,
Mhm.
experiences of togetherness, and the fact that we're dating the sheets, it just reminds us there are only so many hours in the day and days in the year, and that time is precious. And so however many times you get to play that game with family, it's good to remember that each one is a gift and a unique opportunity. And I don't know, I just love
Yeah.
that about what you shared. The other thing that's jumping out to me is how there's that intergenerational dimension, like you talked about seeing the score sheet that your mom had from before you were born. And I would love to talk a little bit about sharing games with a new generation. We had our own experiences when we were children, and we were blessed and delighted when adults would sit down and play with us. And maybe it was a time where they could kind of let down their hair and be a little zany when they had in normal life, they felt like they had to be a little bit more strict. But then in turn, we get to do the same thing with other younger people. And so if it's okay to go in that vein, I'd like to share a few
Mm.
pictures. And specifically, I put together a slideshow of pictures of board games that from our family. And I'm just going to scroll through those real quickly as I talk. And just, I didn't realize until I was preparing for today how
Mhm.
many fun moments there were over the years surrounding board games. And as I started going through the pictures, I could just did a quick search in Google Photos, and I kept getting image after image of us sitting around at the table playing. And it just reminded me of that that's such a wonderful medium for connection and fun. And it also reminded me too over the years how much it helped us connect with our kids. And like I was saying
Mhm.
earlier, it bridges that gap between adults and kids. And I hope it's okay at the speed in which I'm scrolling. Does it look okay on your end?
Yeah.
Is it kind of
Mhm.
slow?
Mhm.
Okay.
Bar
So,
Barney, if you could scroll back just a second, what
yes,
is the game, second f next to Ticket to Ride in that row, next to
this here,
Skate? Yes.
Uh-huh.
boy,
Do you remember?
I can't remember what this one is. That is a
What a
very
n
distinct
what a
game,
neat
though.
setup
Oh,
though, yeah.
neat,
Oh my
Mhm.
sure.
goodness. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, it's very intricate. I'm sure that took a long time to put that together. And
Right,
you
right.
yeah. Wow. I'm sorry, I don't
That's
I'll
that's okay.
try to get the answer and get back to you at some point. That's fascinating. Yeah, and it's interesting. Oh, maybe just since we zoomed in for a minute, I wanted to highlight this game because my friend got this for me. My good friend Joe Capizzuto, when we were growing up, we would watch monster movies, particularly Godzilla movies, and so he found this board game, King of Tokyo, and I had so much fun playing this with Katie this time, and it's basically you're a big monster, and you wanna dominate the city and, like, be the king, and so the whole game is built around you, like, destroying and conquering and outdoing the other monsters. So anyway, just put a shout out to my friend Joe for that. It's a fun concept. But the other thing I noticed too, as I was going through these pictures is I'm grateful for Katie's family, like her brother and sister-in-law who visit us a lot from Cincinnati. There were so many pictures where they were present for the games, and it just
Mm.
made me realize, okay, games bring families together and extended families together, and, I have a few pictures here of some of our favorite games like Dragonwood and King
Mhm.
Domino, and there's this one here called Wildcraft where you go through, on a
Mm.
path, on a journey, and you get, like, poison ivy, and you get cuts on your knee, and then you have to use, like, homeopathic remedies from nature, like, what types of herbs or what type of thing will help with really and you have to collect those cards. Yeah, and these
And you can be age 4 and play that game? Wow.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and just I'll just briefly highlight here with my cursor just going back and forth, you can see Hannah's aunt, Kate, and just sitting on the floor with her in this picture, and just how it it it's a great leveler. It brings people onto the same
Mhm,
playing field, and everybody participates and has a chance to win, and it's fun when the kids win and celebrate, and
mhm,
sometimes they
mhm.
even gloat, and you're like, "No, don't take it too far." I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
right, yeah.
But 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 that is part of the delight, and this is an example of the board there of Wildcraft going around that
Mhm,
adventure, and I
Mm.
just love laughing together, and so anyway, just another highlight that board games are intergenerational, and they are accessible in many ways, and they create community, and these are some of the things I really love about them.
mhm.
So, maybe handing it over to you both, are there any connections you have when we think about this idea of sharing board games with younger people or a different generation or
Barney, I'm really curious to hear in your culture what you've done with your guys.
Yeah, I can share a few different things. Maybe quickly to just kind of tag on what Jacob and Ken have both said about, like the old, the real traditional old standby, board games that everyone seems to have, like checkers and chess. And Yuma found an old, like just real general, probably like $10 box of chess that was in the basement at my dad's house again. And then he really enjoyed it and he wanted to play it here. And I was doing a wood project for my wife to make some things around the house. And I had an extra board around and I realized it's almost square. And so I went and I marked it off real well and I stained it two different
wow,
colors so
wow,
it could make a chess set
Mm.
or checkers out of it. And it was real painstaking, but really worth it in the end. And we use we use Lego pieces. So because I have a lot of
oh,
castle
wow.
Legos, but one of them includes a queen on the one side, and on the other side, we didn't have another queen, so we have Princess Leia is the other queen. And then, some of the castle Legos have horses, so those are the knights, and then we had some witch hats, so those are the bishops. And then, we made construction workers into the rooks, and then just the run-of-the-mill soldier, medieval, castle Lego soldier guys are the pawns. And
Mm.
it's really it's really a lot of fun the way that we do that. But so that is a way that we could kind of take what we had and make it into a board game and enjoy it that way. With Jacob recommended Wildcraft to
Oh,
us, and we got that. And as Jacob said, he showed us the board. And the neat thing about Wildcraft that I love so much is it's not competitive. And then actually, you'll see on the board there's these purple squares. Like you can download a story that goes with it. And if you land on a purple square, then like you read part of the story. And like it starts with being here at grandma's house, grandma and grandpa's house. And I think that they went to make pie. And then so you have to go to the huckleberry patch and get enough huckleberries. And the first person they have helper cards. And like you can use a helper card. Like if you have some plants that will cure somebody's, itches or tiredness or hunger or something like that. Like you can use a helper card on your turn and then give that one of those cards to them. And or you can use the helper card to bring other people to where you are. So either if you're headed toward the patch or headed home. And so it's wonderful that it's such a cooperative game. And we had friends over here in Japan, and then we explained it to them, and then only partway through did they realize, oh, wait a minute, this isn't who wins. This is helping each other. They're like, we've never played a game like that before. And my kids got into it so much that we made kind of like what Ken was saying. We made it started as Wildcraft, but we scratched that out and we made it the Huckleberry Diary. And so each time we play now, we make a memo. How many hurts did we get? Like poison ivy or whatnot. And then how many days passed? Because if you land on a certain square, like you have to take 1 hour away, or not how many days, how many hours passed? How quickly did we complete the journey in game time, not real life time? And then how many helper cards were left and how many plants were left. And the kids always make sure that we, make that memo. So that made me think of Ken's Yahtzee score sheet. We kind of have this own Wildcraft lore that we have going on, a story within the story. So those are two connections I made to what you guys said. And then Ken, about your question about kind of culturally sharing games here in Japan, then I think I mentioned, I don't remember, but my wife's grandma really liked Hanafuda, which is a card game that I don't have it with me, but it's a card game, and there are 4 cards for each month. And within those 4 cards, there are cards that are just kind of worthless, and then cards that will have points. And you have to make matches in order to claim the pair of cards. And you want to claim as many points as possible. And then there's also like little bonus points and whatnot. And so she taught that to me once, and we played it, and I really enjoyed it. And then, we forgot about it. And then years later, we got like a Mario version of it because it was made. Nintendo got their start making Hanafuda cards, and then so they just the traditional ones, and then they also have more modern Mario character ones. But and then when the grandma passed away, then one afternoon at my in-laws' house, we just spent the day, a few hours even playing Hanafuda over and over and over again. And the dad got interested in it because he remembered, and we all remembered how well she enjoyed that game. And so that was one nice thing that was a game that I knew nothing about that she quickly taught me, and I picked up, and then I could share with the people around me. And then we could also use it later to remember her. And
can I
so,
ask a follow-up question about that,
mhm,
Barney? I don't mean to interrupt you, but
mhm.
I remembered at one point you saying, that, like, the Hanafuda card is a little smaller than a standard playing card and more rigid, and you were saying
Right.
somebody in the family told you, "You gotta slam them down hard," right?
Yeah, that's
Because 'cause they're
correct.
rigid, they can take that, and that's part of the fun of the game, Was
Mhm.
that your father-in-law who told you, or is that
Yeah, that's right.
okay.
Uh-huh. So, like, you have when you sit around so, of course, in Japan, right, you sit around in the traditional sense, in the tatami room, the room with the flooring made out of, like, rice straw. You have a low table, and then you sit on cushions around the low table. But then when it's Hanafuda time, then then you move away from the table and you play on top of a cushion, one of those cushions. And yeah, there's a proper way to like snap up a card out of the draw pile. And there's a proper way to, you kind of like aim it at the card that you hope, because you have to discard. And so you aim that discard at the card that you are hoping to match it with when you flip it over. And then, there's a technique to making it snap and make a nice satisfying smack sound when it hits the other cards.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm just so fascinated with this, Ken. uh, b- you may wonder, oh, well, Jacob's really asking Barney a lot of follow-up questions because being a Nintendo fan, like Barney said, they started out making Hanafuda cards, and so, like, I really wanted to get into Hanafuda because of that Nintendo connection, and so over the years, I've asked Barney, and he's sent pointers and videos I can
Mhm.
watch to try to help me get to a place where I can play it. Because I got a deck early on, and then I tried to play it with Katie, and I didn't quite have a grasp on the
Mm.
rules, but the more I'm learning, the more fun it is, and the cards are so beautiful, just aesthetically.
Yeah.
You spread them out, like
Mhm.
Barney said, for the different seasons, there's sights from the natural world, different flowers
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
birds and just like there's a
Yeah.
moon and like just the way the artistic design on the cards. And I almost feel like there's like a formula, like most Hanafuda decks kind of observe a similar artistic style. I don't know if that's
Right.
true, but there's a similar kind of convention for producing each of the
Mhm.
sets, and
Mhm.
it's just really pretty. So I'm really grateful you brought that up, Barney.
Mhm.
'Cause
Mhm.
I think it's interesting at this point that, I'm hearing the connection right there between the two of you as grown adults, that, they're that's what games do. It's
Mm.
such an amazingly wonderful,
yes.
wonderful thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Is it Hanafudu? How do you say that
Fuda.
again? Fuda.
Hanafuda. Mhm.
Hanafuda.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
can tell you, I'll be getting a Wildcraft for my wife for Christmas
Oh, yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.
she loves
Don't
dancing.
now you can't let her hear this episode until after Christmas. Or when you get to this part, you have to
Oops.
distract her, you know?
Oops.
Take the volume knob and just kinda go
I don't
down
know
for a little
what's
bit
happening.
and,
"Hey, can
"Oh,
you help
what's
me
that
open
out
this
there?"
jar here in the kitchen, please?" You know? "Oh, wait.
I
Oh, I got it. Okay."
she's not
Back
exactly
to
an
the
ardent
episode.
she's not exactly an ardent fan, guys.
Oh, no, no.
It may not be.
You
Not
mean
until
our
she hears
wives
this
aren't
episode.
listening to all of our episodes and
Hard
wanting
to
to
believe.
discuss them with us?
They
Yeah,
haven't had
what are
enough
you
of
guys
us.
talking about? I've never heard this before.
They haven't had enough of us in real life every
I
single
know.
day that
I'm like, "You mean you don't, like, have a notepad and sit down and just take
Yeah,
notes
yeah.
and, like, come up with question after question you wanna discuss with me?"
You're not hosting a fan site on, you're not one of the moderators for our Reddit page, you know?
by the way, our next episode will be all about sarcasm.
Oh, right, right, right. I thought you were gonna say we'll all be about apologizing to our wives.
Oh, yeah, that better be the next episode.
But they
Yeah,
won't
okay,
listen to
okay.
this to
Then the
know,
one
so we're
after that.
good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're so fine. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my. Well
Well, go ahead.
well, I was gonna ask you, Ken, about the same question about connecting with
Mm.
a younger generation through board games. I didn't know if you had any stories or examples or thoughts that you wanted to share.
Well, I'll start by saying my daughter is an only child, so particularly in summertime when I was teaching, when I would have some time off before coaching and all of those things, we certainly played a ton of games.
Mm.
Plus, our vacation was always camping. So we found ourselves purchasing a number of travel size, so you had less to pack kind of things. One thing I remember, guys, is and the game's still out there, a little game called Guess Who, where you're trying to figure out which person, and you have the little plastic flips. A lot of time spent on that one. A lot of time spent on that one. I'm sure we did Yahtzee. We played a 500 rummy. I don't know how much you guys may have done that, but, one deck of cards. One I remember fondly because we picked it up, I think, while in Vermont from a family in Massachusetts. Very simple idea called double solitaire. 2 decks of cards, you face each other, and you each set it up just like a game of solitaire, but as the aces present themselves between the 2 rows of 7 piles of cards, you can play on anybody's ace.
Mm.
So it was truly a speed game, and that was a lot of fun, and she was quick, and, uh, I have found through the years that I'm not as quick on some of the speed games anymore, but that was fun to indulge in, just to, release some energy. Monopoly was probably a go-to to some extent. It always seemed hard to play that one until the end.
Oh,
If
yeah.
someone
Yes,
if
I'm with
someone
you.
really had the hotels up, there's an
Oh, then
inevitability
yeah,
that
right,
this
yeah.
game
Yeah.
and, on you went. Again, you'll see some slides. Barney, you're gonna say something, I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what is it about Monopoly? I remember in university, my 2 friends were in the same economics class, and their professor he's like, "If anyone wants Monopoly, you can borrow it over the weekend." So he had a few copies, and then we played it, and then we're like, "It's 4 a.m. What are we doing?" Because no one was getting anywhere. It's like,
I
"Why
get
are we
that.
still playing this game?"
Not getting anywhere, yeah.
I know.
Oh, but yeah, at least if you were the banker, there was some entertainment at
Something
that
to do.
end,
Yeah.
changing money, yeah. A couple of more sort of dribbled in from my youth. I always had a copy of the Game of Life, just had a fun wheel in the middle of it to spin,
Mhm.
and in the early versions of the game, everybody wanted to be the doctor because they had the best salary and, you had professions. And
Mhm.
one other one I'll mention, and this was more of a particular game to my neighborhood, one friend named Bruce. I got a game called Careers. It was not the most exciting, but there was some thought involved, and, Bruce always wanted to play the game of Careers, so that was kind of a thing for he and I, and I really hope I played with him a lot because Bruce was a unique kid in the neighborhood simply because the rest of us, for whatever reason, we always wanted to play baseball. And Bruce was not that athletic, and we weren't real sympathetic to that because you needed bodies you know, and Bruce would play, and to his credit, he played. I don't know if I would have been that kid. So, but he was really into playing board games and so on, and hiking around and fishing, and he was that kind of guy. So I was always glad to play with him there. I think that's about what comes to mind for me.
You
Oh,
you
oh,
actually
hang on
sorry.
one second, I'll add one more thing. My daughter learned euchre pretty young, and she was a great partner. We'd love to play others. When you have a good partner, you know this,
Mhm.
Barney, it some things that can happen that can, forge on to victory. As an adult, we used to have euchre tournaments with teachers, and you could bring whomever, and I would try to get her to come if she was available because, I knew we have a chance then, so, yeah. Sorry, thank you.
But yeah, I mean, Ken, talking about sharing games with new generations, even when my kids and I visited you, you taught us that game with the penny,
Mm.
where you're supposed to roll the dice and try to hope to get a 6 or hope to get all of your pennies sent to other people. So it's fun to have, like, simple games. So there are those simple games there that are easy to pick up and don't take a long time to play that you can easily just pull out when people drop by and teach that to them, and then they get into it and they can teach it to others too. And you could kind of adapt it, if you just could just have cards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then play with poker, or with them like poker chips or checkers or coins, and then just get rid of them that way. You don't have to have the box, but
Right.
it's such a simple idea that you can take with you, and like you did to us, you taught us that. That was really fun.
Thanks.
Yeah, before we started recording, Ken, you shared with me a few images and a video about some family friends or relatives who have taken board games into a mobile operation where they can actually host events. Did you want to spend a little time talking with us about what they do?
Yeah, I think, Jacob, yeah, it's a good time for that.
Okay.
I had contacted my cousin Christina, who's a second
Wow.
cousin, my cousin Lenny's daughter, and they started this idea probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I asked her some questions because they do this pretty frequently at various venues, and I was wondering if it had evolved into a permanent job, their source of income. And the answer is no. They both do work full time, but they do have some goals. That's Christy right there. Same age as my daughter, around 37, 38 years old. Sorry for saying your age there, Christy. Uh, and and they came to our house 4 years ago, I think, for a July 4th gathering, and they brought a number of games they thought we might be interested in. And, oh, it was great fun because they know them well, and her husband, Nick, does a great job of explaining some of the more intricate games. So, yeah, that was a rich time. So they call themselves Tabletop Station. They are in the Youngstown, Ohio area. There we go. Thanks, Jacob. And yeah, why don't you go ahead with the video? I think it really explains better than I can what they're about.
Okay. And it'll just take me 1 minute to
Sure,
click over,
sure.
and then I will share the screen here.
They have purchased a van that they've put a logo on the side to carry these around, and this is Nick and Christy.
My name is Christina, and this is my husband, Nick, and we are the owners of Tabletop Station. Tabletop Station is a mobile game library, and we go to different venues to share our board games with the community.
We started in early 2020, right before the pandemic hit. We had one event right before everything shut down with the entire country. We took time off and then finally got back into it about 2 years later. And we finally built up to where we're doing an event a week at different places.
Neither of us really played board games growing up. He actually went to a bachelor party and played a game called Catan and really wanted me to play, and I just was not interested. So he had to beg me several times to play, and one day he finally bought the game and we played and we had a lot of fun, and it just kind of exploded from that point. So our collection went from one shelf to now over 1,000 board games.
We've seen a lot of people just want to learn new games, which is really cool. It's a nice way to find a game that maybe you want to try or maybe buy later. You have an opportunity to come here and play for free and learn how to play it. I really like just showing people new stuff. They may have played games when they were kids and played Monopoly or Sorry, and those are all fine games, but we've moved past that in the way that games are being developed now.
And I love the relationships that we've built with the people that are coming to our events, but also the places that we're going. Our ultimate goal would be to have our own brick and mortar Tabletop Station cafe. So we would love to support the places that we are going to now. We want to have all of their products in our cafe so we can share our entire collection with the community, plus some really awesome products from local venues as well.
Yeah, I don't know if either of them mentioned it within, I think they're at 1,000 plus games now. thus buying a van to haul them around. Uh, the, their ultimate goal, as Christy said, said to me, is to build a coffee shop and have this then be the thing and earn their living that way. So
Wow.
they've got a ways to go, but they've done some nice things with it. That round game you saw repeatedly,
Mhm.
Barney, you talked about the penny game and simplicity. That one is very simplistic as well. You're just flicking the little pieces to try to get them in the middle there and knock other people out. And that's they brought that one when they visited us, and it was fun to sit around with that one.
That's so fun. It's kinda neat to see people who have taken pastime or a hobby and then take it to the next level, and
Mhm.
now they're fostering that in their community and helping other people find enjoyment with it. I always love seeing people's excitement expressed in, like, ventures like that. That's really
Mhm.
cool.
Mhm.
Barney, I know too, before we started recording, you had shared an image with me of Ticket to
Yeah.
Ride. Would you like to say anything about that?
Yeah, sure. I just took a picture of the board, I think maybe after we were done. This, I think, is probably the first edition or the first version, iteration of Ticket to Ride where you're playing, the United States and parts of Canada. And one thing I like about Ticket to Ride is how colorful it is, and I like the way that the board develops, and it's always a little bit different each time. And then when you're done with the game, it's so neat to see the trains lined up and how it looks neat and crisscrosses around the country. And then as you're kind of the way we always do the scoring is when we get to the destinations, we read off our destination, but someone else, does the point totals for us. And it's just neat to like show, I went from here to here and then trace the route that it was that you took to get there. And so I often take pictures when we're done, just because it looks so interesting when you're done to see how colorful it is. And that's one thing that's so neat, I think, about board games. Ken mentioned Life. One thing that I liked about Life was how the board was kind of like had 3D elements to it. It was interesting to look at, and that made me think of how when I was growing up, I had the board game Mousetraps, which is kind of
Ah,
like a
yeah.
3D kind of game that you build the mousetrap and go through it and hope not to get captured. And it's those kind of games, that have like they're colorful or they're tactile, they're really interesting. And I'm always drawn to those. Like this is I guess it's a board game, and not a board game. It's I guess it's just like something to keep our attention, But this is one that Jacob introduced us to, and it's called Story Cubes. And he brought it once when we all gathered together for breakfast, and these are nice because the die are so tactile too. Like it's like they're etched in there on the dice, and they feel nice in your hand. And then they're just so neat to play with because, you roll the 9 dice and there's different ways, but, you end up coming up with stories however wacky or silly or serious you want them to be. And then if you do a few rounds, you can keep the story going or start over each time. And it's just, again, another fun and simple that anyone can pick up. And in this case, any language would be okay, because there's nothing written. You just have to look at the picture and use your imagination. And then if I can share some more games, this is one that my dad got us. It's Genius Square. And he also got us one that's Genius Star. And this is so neat because I can't imagine how someone came up with this. But you have like these are also fun to hold, like little, almost like Tetris shapes, blocks. And each person, it's only 2-player game, sadly, or it could be 1 player. And each person gets their own set and they're different colors and they have grooves on them because they fit into the genius square. I can get it to pop out here. And it's just a real simple grid. And the reason why it has the grid is because, again, this is so genius. You have a set of dice that come with it, and each dice has there are some squares that won't show up, but they have coordinates. And so like F4 or A1, and then you take these pegs and you put them on your board, and then it's a race to see how quickly, having these certain things blocked off with the pegs, how quickly can you use these shapes and fill in your board? And, sometimes it will fit or it won't fit. Sometimes you have to start over. Sometimes it's just a case of moving a few different pieces and, you race each other or yourself. And it's just, it's great. And it's just, we always ask ourselves, how did someone come up with this? It's just that you can roll the dice and every time, however it lands, there is never not a solution. It's just so cool. That's just so cool about that, and we just love that so much. And then one more game that I'll share. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this one. This one, my brother and sister-in-law introduced us to. It's called Chick-a-Pig, and they call it farmer's chess is what they call it, and it's a little bit hard to see, but you have your own color of pigs, Chick-a-Pigs, and you have to get them to the goal on the other side. And Chick-a-Pigs move, forward, forward, backward, left or right, and they go until they run into something. But then you have hay bales, and those can only move one square. So that could be like something that the Chick-a-Pig can run into to stop it. And then there's the cow. And if you roll a 1, or you can move the cow anytime within your roll, but if you roll a 1, then you can place the cow anywhere you want. And anytime you place the cow, of course, as all cows do, it poops. And then if the cow has moved away from its poop and a Chick-a-Pig runs through the poop because poop can't stop a Chick-a-Pig, then you get card that might be pretty bad. Like you have to put one of your Chick-a-Pigs back on the board, or the least bad is you lose a turn. And so it's fun. You can try to block each other. You can do fun things with it, but it's always, and there's a lot of strategy. Surprisingly, farmers chess, as they call it. There is a lot of strategy involved to it, and really fun, colorful, and it's one of those games that I'm glad that someone introduced us to, and we play it quite a bit.
I'd love to be sitting back and listening as you guys played Chick-a-Pig. It's gotta be hilarious. Plus you get to say poop,
I know.
that's
So
awesome.
I mean, young and old alike. It's
So the
very
one with the grid, Barney, that was Genius Square?
wares, and then they have a Genius Star version, which is
Oh,
star-shaped board, and amazing that no matter what you roll, you can always solve it somehow. It's so cool. It's so much fun.
oh, that's brilliant, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I remain sad that we got rid of our Ticket to Ride. It's such a brilliantly conceived game,
Mhm,
but, some games you don't play.
mhm,
I wanna relate one quick funny story, and then I think pretty well covered what I have here, but I think you can see it, which would be on the lowest shelf. You can see Racco. If you go
mhm,
straight across from Racco, there's a game called Word Thief. We do like Angie and I like word games, and this is basically a create words, steal the other person's words, tear it up, make new words, blah, blah, blah. And maybe you guys have experienced this in your game playing. There was a part of it that we just didn't like the way the rules went. So in the midst of one of the games, I called the company while we were playing to express our opinion about this particular rule, And I did get a human being
Whoa.
at some point, and we explained what we felt about it, and they were very open to listening. And I can't say I followed through to find future versions of it to see if they had if they had changed that rule, but we really felt it was a flaw, that could be taken advantage of, and it was just fun to talk to the person, and and also, Barney, when you were talking about speed and so on, in the one game, are you all familiar with bananagrams? It has a bunch of tiles just like Scrabble, but it comes in a little I should have brought it up, it comes in a little material zippered case, and there's lots of tiles, and you each take, say, 15 of them. You start building words in front of you as fast as you can, and you can force people to be picking up tiles because all of your words are now complete using your tiles, but you still play until all the tiles are gone.
Mm.
And, if you love words, that one's a
Mm.
lot of fun, and you don't kids can do it. They don't necessarily have the range of vocabulary, but they can do it. This has been fun. I've written down 4 games already
Oh,
over here
wow.
that the 2 of you have mentioned.
I agree. This has been so fun. Thank you for coming up with this topic, Barney, and for suggesting it. It's been a real joy.
Yeah, good one.
Yeah, then in that case, sadly, we must bring this episode to a close. And it really, truly has been a lot of fun to learn about new games, to see the great backgrounds that Ken and Jacob prepared in preparation for the show. I was tempted, like every time I would be on camera, I was tempted to just hold something behind me, to try and catch up with what you guys were able to come up with. But we hope that those of you listening and watching along, maybe like Ken, maybe like me, like Jacob, learned about some new games, some that have piqued our interest, or remembered some old games that maybe you want to try and find or dig up again and share with the next generation or friends that drop by. There's something so special, so wonderful, magical, uniting about board games that really makes them such a treasure, such a great time to take a moment and sit down, not worry about what else is going on, but just play a few board games and enjoy the new stories, the new experiences, the new things that come about as you play along, the fun things or upsetting things that happen along the way that make these memories that stick with us. Whether we record them on paper or just keep them in our heart. And so we want to thank you again for joining us today on the Two World podcast. And I am Barney with Ken and Jacob, and we will see you all again next time.